All right, let's try a little experiment. We're going to zoom in on just one 24-hour period, Monday, August 25th, 2025, to see if a single day can tell us something bigger about the huge forces shaping our world. I mean, think about it. Every single day, the planet is just a whirlwind of activity, right? Billions of lives are unfolding, thousands of headlines are all fighting for our attention. It can feel completely overwhelming. But if you look really closely, patterns start to show up. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and find the story of our world right now by looking at the events of just one day. And we'll do it by looking at three different arenas: politics, finance, and, well, human endeavor. First up, politics and peril. And believe me, on this particular day, the friction was, you could feel it. It was a day of really intense conflict and some super high-stakes diplomacy. A world on edge, for sure. It starts with a single, chilling number: 20. Just a stark, cold figure that represents the human cost of an airstrike on a hospital in southern Gaza. But that number alone doesn't even begin to tell the full story. The attack was what's known as a double strike, meaning the second one hit after journalists and rescuers had already rushed to the scene. Among those killed were 5 members of the press and several aid workers. Just a devastating blow to that community and really to the whole idea of humanitarian aid. And at the very same time, thousands of miles away from that violence, a totally different kind of crisis was brewing. Over at the White House, a critical trade summit between the U.S. and South Korea was nearly blown up before it even started. And the spark? It was a social media post from President Trump sent out right before he was supposed to meet South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. It mentioned a purge or revolution in South Korea, a comment that was seen as incredibly inflammatory, and it threw the entire summit into chaos. So, how did President Lee respond? He just calmly clarified what was actually happening. He explained that some recent government raids were part of a purely domestic coup investigation, and they had absolutely nothing to do with U.S. military bases. That calm, factual statement, it worked. It completely diffused the tension and got the talks back on track. Okay, so from the sharp edges of politics, let's pivot to the world of finance. On this very same day, the economy was sending out a whole bunch of complex and honestly pretty contradictory signals about where we're all headed. The big economic story of the day definitely came from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He was speaking at a major conference, and he hinted that an interest rate cut might be coming in September. For markets that have been really worried about the economy slowing down, this was a huge potential sign of relief. So you'd think, great, markets are going to soar, right? But the reality was a lot more complicated. While everyone heard the good news from the Fed, they were also listening to a whole lot of other noise. Just look at this snapshot. You can see the contrast so clearly. On the one hand, you've got these massive government and corporate moves, like the U.S. taking a 10% stake in Intel and Keurig Dr. Pepper announcing a huge acquisition. But on the other hand, fears about new tariffs absolutely tanked furniture stocks, and the entire crypto market saw a pretty significant drop. It's like a perfect picture of an economy getting pulled in 2 different directions at once. Okay, for our final piece of the puzzle, let's turn from markets and politics to mankind's bigger ambitions. We're talking about stories that really capture our drive to protect what we have here on Earth and our deep desire to reach for the stars. This number represents a lifeline. It's £1 million. And it was the last-minute funding that saved this year's Hill Carnival, Europe's biggest street festival, from being canceled. A moment of just pure relief for millions of people. But here's the thing. That relief was pretty temporary, because the carnival itself is fighting for its soul. Organizers are warning that constant money problems, heavy policing, and just negative media coverage are threatening the event's very identity and its Caribbean cultural roots. So yeah, it survived today, but its future is anything but secure. And it's pretty amazing to think that on the very same day that one cultural cornerstone was fighting just to survive, another monumental human project was getting ready for a critical test, shifting our focus from the streets of London to the blackness of space. This was a make-or-break moment for SpaceX. They were prepping for the 10th test flight of their massive Super Heavy-Starship rocket, and after a series of failures, the pressure was just immense. The success of this one launch was absolutely vital, not just to restore faith in the rocket, but to keep NASA's entire Artemis moon mission, which is planned for 2027, on schedule. The stakes could not have been higher. So, what do we do with all this? A hospital bombing, a diplomatic crisis avoided, confusing signals from the market, a cultural festival saved at the 11th hour, and a moon mission hanging in the balance. You know, when you lay it all out like this, a pretty clear theme just jumps right out at you. It's this constant, dynamic push and pull between tension and release. In every single area we looked at, you see these forces of conflict and fear running right alongside forces of de-escalation and ambition. This, right here, this is kind of the rhythm of our world. This single day shows us a world that's basically teetering on a wire between progress and peril, between our worst impulses and our absolute best aspirations, and it leaves us with a really fundamental question. If this is the story of today, what choices will we make to write the story of tomorrow?